First, thanks for having me. I think that overall the numbers will likely decrease. There's too many logistical problems, and with the recent ICE decree, which is absolutely ridiculous, it definitely will impact Chinese students' decisions and families' decisions to come over. I would think, though, that when it comes to actually what universities will see a decrease, that it won't be evenly distributed across universities, and that the elite universities likely will still have be able to maintain higher numbers, while the smaller schools will probably be harder hit.
You referred to the Trump administration's decision there as absolutely ridiculous. Understandably, this decision this week caught many people by surprise. What's been some of the response you've seen? I've heard of some university professors promising to offer one-hour courses to anyone who needs to show that they're actually in person. What have you seen there in New York?
So there's definitely a range of kind of the innovative solutions that universities are thinking about to kind of get around the rules. Here I would actually point to Harvard and MIT, my own alma mater, that actually has sued the Trump administration and taking a much more aggressive stance that says that this policy is discriminatory, xenophobic, ridiculous. And that's actually where I believe that universities stand firmer and to show our support for international students.
There is great pride globally in getting into American universities. Back in China, for example, agencies and tutorial courses for students who want to study abroad, notably in the U.S., make up a huge part of the education industry. What sort of setback do you think they might face?
So, I mean, I imagine that if the logistics are too insurmountable, that universities will be flexible about figuring out whether they can defer their entrance or take a year in China before they come to the United States. I think that these are the most ideal, and there's just so much unknown, both from the university, from the government, and from students and families. But I do want to say that universities are very distinct from the U.S. government, and that universities overwhelmingly are showing their support and concern for international students that now are just students. They are part of an inextricable part of our communities.
What does a drop in foreign student enrollment mean in terms of revenue and budgets for American universities like yours, and more so for public universities which rely on their higher tuition compared to local students?
So the economic impacts will be devastating. Already universities are reeling from dealing with revenue decreases because of COVID, and then adding on this, it will be disastrous. Here, my concern is actually for, like you said, the smaller, particularly state universities, that they could actually just be insolvent. And already you've seen, because of the pandemic, universities actually closing. While I do have a concern for the larger, more prestigious universities, I think it will change the landscape of U.S. higher education for years to come.
I want to go back to the Gaokao because it's a big test in China, and they've been taking it this week. How does it differ, for those who don't know, from the standardized tests in the U.S., like the SAT, which I should note are controversial tests in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first, there is much more of a widespread standardization of the Gaokao, both in terms of the actual material and the student experience, where almost every single public high school in China will dedicate, if not the entire last year, a significant portion to studying for the Gaokao in school, where in the United States, only the most elite public and usually only private schools will have tutoring within the schools. Usually students will have to find it outside. So I would say that in many ways, the Gaokao is a much more equalizing system than the SATs.
For Chinese students who prepared so long to study in the U.S. and perhaps to stay and get jobs, what obstacles might they face academically, professionally, in going back to China earlier than expected?
I think one large reason that Chinese students' families decide to study in the United States is it's not just for the world experience, but also for the legitimacy, the diploma, to say to employers, I spent a significant number of years studying in the United States, and if they are not able to complete the diplomas, this will be something missing, right? And then as students will then seek to finish their higher education degrees in China, I imagine that they'll find it difficult, if not impossible, to actually get into the most prestigious Chinese universities, and they'll have to scramble to find a way to finish their degrees.